Hey everyone, and welcome. Think about this. Every single day, you use numbers. You check the time, you send a text, you scroll online, but have you ever stopped to think about where those numbers actually came from? I'm not just talking about the squiggles on the page, but the actual ideas behind them. Well, today, we're going to uncover the incredible and often overlooked secret history of the numbers that literally run our world, and it's a story that starts in ancient India. But before we jump in our time machine, I've got a question for you. What do you think is the single most important, most game-changing number ever invented? Seriously, think about it for a sec. Is it 1? Maybe 100? Pi? Whatever your answer is, just hang on to it, because by the end of this journey, you might have a new favorite. All right, so our story doesn't begin in some stuffy classroom with a bunch of abstract equations on a chalkboard. No, it starts with something way more fundamental: dirt, bricks, and fire. See, the ideas that would eventually revolutionize the entire planet grew from really practical, real-world problems that just needed to be solved. I mean, let's rewind the clock. Way back, like 3000 BCE, the Indus Valley Civilization was an absolute powerhouse of engineering. And guess what? You can't build a massive, complex civilization without math. And look how precise they were. They had standardized weights, all based on a decimal system to make sure trade was fair. And their bricks, get this, they used a perfect 4:2 ratio. That design is so good for making strong, interlocking walls that modern engineers still study it today. This wasn't just luck. It was applied geometry, an essential piece of technology for building their world. Now, this super practical use of math also took on this really fascinating sacred dimension with something called the Sulba Sutras, or the rules of the chord. These weren't math homework. They were more like sacred instruction manuals. They laid out the exact geometric rules you needed to build incredibly precise fire altars for religious ceremonies. Every single shape had a specific spiritual meaning, so getting the geometry absolutely perfect was a form of devotion. And this is where things get really mind-blowing, because tucked away inside these instructions for building altars is a crystal clear understanding and use of the Pythagorean theorem. You know, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And the kicker? This was being used in India centuries before a guy named Pythagoras was even born. For them, it wasn't some abstract theorem. It was a tool. It was the answer to a crucial question. How do you make sure your sacred altar has a perfect right angle? Simple. You use a rope. And this just shows you how brilliantly simple it was. You take a single rope, maybe with knots tied in it to mark out 12 equal units, you stake it into the ground to make a triangle with sides that are 3, 4, and 5 units long. And bam, just like that, the corner opposite the longest side is a perfect 90-degree right angle. So elegant, so simple, and absolutely essential for their work. Okay, so from the very practical world of building things, we're now about to take a massive leap into the world of ideas. And this next step is arguably the single greatest mathematical gift India gave to the world: the invention of nothing, the idea of zero. But here's the thing. Zero didn't just appear out of thin air fully formed. It actually evolved in stages. The first big step we can see is in this ancient document called the Bakshali manuscript. In it, they use a simple dot just as a placeholder. It was a way to tell the difference between, say, the number 15 and the number 15.5 or 105. But then, in 628 AD, a genius mathematician named Brahmagupta did something that changed everything. He decided to treat zero not just as a space filler, but as a real number in its own right, a number you could actually do math with. So what's the big deal? Well, think of it this way. A placeholder is like an empty parking space. It's just there to hold a spot, but a true number is like a car. You can do things with it. The leap to being able to say 5 minus 5 equals 0 was huge. It transformed zero from just a piece of punctuation into the very foundation of modern mathematics. So, with this full decimal system and the incredible power of zero in their toolkit, the stage was set for a mathematical explosion, a true golden age. A whole series of brilliant thinkers took these new tools and just ran with them, exploring the universe in ways no one could have imagined before. Let's meet some of these heavy hitters. First up, you have Aryabhata, a total pioneer who laid the foundations for trigonometry and calculated a ridiculously accurate value for pi. Then there's Brahmagupta, the guy we just met. Not only did he formalize zero, he also figured out the rules for working with negative numbers and gave us the quadratic formula. And then, building on their work, comes Bhaskara II, an absolute master of algebra who was solving insanely complex equations. I just want to pause on this number for a second. This was Aryabhata's calculation for pi. He figured this out back in the 5th century. To get that close without a calculator, without a computer, that's just staggering. It really shows you how powerful and sophisticated their mathematical system had become. But these mathematicians weren't just writing dry, boring textbooks. They actually had a flair for making math beautiful and engaging. Bhaskar II, in one of his famous works, taught really complex algebra through these wonderful stories and poems. Just listen to this. This is an algebra problem, but it's presented as this poetic riddle about a swarm of bees. It's just a fantastic way to make these abstract ideas stick in your head. So what do you think? Can you solve it? All right, let's break it down together. If we say x is the total number of bees, we can actually translate the poem line by line into an algebraic equation. So you have 1/5 of x plus 1/3 of x plus 3 times the difference between them, plus that one lonely bee flying around. And when you simplify all of that down, you end up with a pretty simple fact. 1/15 of the swarm is equal to 1. Which means the total number of bees in the swarm was 15. Isn't that cool? It's a perfect example of how this powerful tool, algebra, could take a complicated story and solve it so elegantly. It's an 800-year-old brain teaser, but the math is totally timeless. So here we have this absolutely revolutionary system, 9 digits, the idea of place value, and the game-changing number 0. This was India's incredible gift to the world. But how did it get from there to, well, everywhere else? The journey of these numbers is a whole other amazing story. Well, from India, this knowledge traveled along the busy trade routes and into the Islamic world. And a key person in this story was the Persian mathematician Al-Khwarizmi. He was so influential, his name actually gave us the word algorithm. And the title of one of his books, Al-Jar, gave us the word algebra. His work, which explained and built upon the Indian system, was eventually translated into Latin. And from there, it spread all through Europe, becoming what we now know as the Hindu-Arabic numeral system. So why does all of this ancient history matter to you right now? Because the computer or the phone or the tablet that you are watching this on runs on this exact system. Every single piece of digital technology, every major scientific discovery, every transaction in our global economy, it all rests on the foundation built so long ago, a decimal place value system that includes the number 0. It is, and this is not an exaggeration, the language of our modern world. And that brings us all the way back to that first question I asked, the most important number ever. A lot of people would make a very strong case for 0. The nothing that allows us to write and calculate everything. The story of our numbers is this amazing reminder that the things we use every day, the things we take for granted, often have these deep, fascinating histories. And it kind of makes you wonder, what other secret histories are hiding in plain sight all around us? Hey, if you enjoyed digging into this secret history with us, do us a favor and hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the big ideas that shape our world. Thanks so much for watching.